About a year ago, I reviewed my Fat Shark Dominator V2 goggles. They were the most expensive item I had ever bought in the hobby. I was pretty disappointed with them for the price. I was expecting to peer into a cinema screen, and instead what I got was a postage stamp. I do use them a lot, mostly because of their convenience. They are lightweight, compact, and have a built-in DVR, which helps me to record flight footage to show everyone products on the channel. But what if I wasn't running a YouTube channel? Well, I will probably use something like this. These are the KDS Kylin FPV goggles from GearBest.com. They are an all-in-one FPV goggle solution using a compact 5-inch screen with a built-in LiPo battery, a charging solution, and 5.8 GHz video receiver. These goggles cost just $78. Cheap FPV goggles have come a long way since my Quantum V1s, which are made from foam. Everything is contained in this very premium feeling soft touch plastic, which attaches to your head using a 3-point adjustable flexible strap. You are also given a cloverleaf antenna, but be warned, this one seems to be left-hand polarized, so I will be switching mine for a right-hand polarized antenna to match the rest of my gear. It uses an SMA connector, which is pretty standard for antennas. I mentioned earlier that the unit comes with a built-in battery. It can be found in the hatch at the top. I found that I needed to use a screwdriver to lift the clip on the hatch, as it is very stiff. Also, out of the box, the battery is not connected. This is because when the battery is plugged in, the goggles are in standby mode, so they do consume power. You need to make sure that when you have finished flying, you disconnect the battery, otherwise you run the risk of over-discharging the LiPo. You have to connect the battery to the goggles via a JST connector. It is nice that you can remove the battery, as it means that you can buy spares and have them fully charged to fly as long as you want. It is a shame you can't keep the battery connected though. The battery is a 1-cell 2000 mAh LiPo. The specs say that its amp draw is 0.3 or 300 milliamps, so technically you should get around 6 hours of usage from one battery. The battery does also charge via a USB port on the side of the goggles, which is really handy. You are also given a USB lead in the box. The charge time will depend on the output of your USB socket. The unit is spec'd to charge at 1 amp, so if your USB outlet can provide that, then the battery should fully charge in 2 hours. Let's talk a bit about the screen. It is 5 inches and the resolution is quoted as being 800 by 480. The downside to it is that it is stuck in a 16:9 aspect ratio. This is my main issue with the new Fat Shark Dominator V3 and also the Sky Zone goggles. The majority of FPV cameras are in a 4:3 ratio, therefore the image will become stretched using a 4:3 camera with a 16:9 screen. Usually, that is a showstopper for me. However, these goggles are just $78, so it is really hard to complain about that. The screen is massive as well, and I can honestly say that despite me being OCD about the correct aspect ratio, I didn't notice it at all. I think that is to do with the size of the screen. It is absolutely massive, and couple that with a wide-angle lens of an FPV camera, and I was absolutely amazed by the experience. The specs say that the field of view is 50 degrees or so. However, I've seen the Fat Shark Dominator HD2 image, which also claims to be 50 degrees, and the view from the Kylin goggles is so much bigger and clearer than the Fat Shark's. The goggles use a Fresnel lens to enhance the size of the screen, but this doesn't seem to deteriorate the quality of the image. The image from the lens is slightly curved like a cinema screen, which really helps with the immersive experience. The goggles accept both PAL and NTSC signals. The firmware in the screen switches automatically between the two depending on the input signal. The box says that these goggles are 3D, however they are not. I think they were trying to describe the curved screen, which kind of does give a 3D effect, but it doesn't pop out of the screen, so there's no 3D features here. Either way, it is a really nice image. It's one of those things you will have to take my word for, as it's very difficult to film the inside of how a goggle looks. Using my small Mobius cam, here is how the inside of my Fat Sharks look. And in comparison, here is the Kylin goggles. The Kylin goggle offers a much bigger view, I think you will agree, even from just seeing this video footage from a Mobius camera. Somehow, they have still managed to keep these goggles pretty compact. Usually, goggles using a Fresnel lens are very long, but not these ones. On the side of the goggles there are some buttons. The power button speaks for itself. You have to hold it down for a couple of seconds to power the goggles on. The screen will boot up showing the KDS logo, the 5.8 GHz frequency that is currently selected, and the battery level of the monitor. The monitor will then go to snow, which is always good news for FPV. There is a menu button and up and down buttons. Pressing the menu button cycles through some different options. The first one is the brightness function. You can then use the up and down buttons on the side of the goggle to adjust the intensity of the brightness. Next along is the contrast, and again you use the up and down buttons to change those settings. Then we have the color settings. The next option along is the auto scan feature, which is very nice. And lastly, we have the manual search option, which goes up in increments of 5 MHz. There are 61 channels in total covering all of the bands. There are a couple of shortcuts too if you don't fancy going into the menus and want to start flying very quickly. So from startup, the up and down buttons are automatically assigned to the brightness function, which is handy. If you press the menu button in for 2 seconds, the goggles will auto scan for the first video signal it finds. Again, that is very useful for getting started quickly when flying. Lastly, there are some volume buttons. Yes, this monitor has a speaker for those of you who like to transmit audio. There is no audio out jack, unfortunately, and there's no video in or out jack either. To power the goggles off, you just need to hold down the power button until the red sleep bar disappears, and the goggles will go into sleep mode. But, as mentioned earlier, they are still powered, so you will want to disconnect that battery if you are finished flying. So the functions are pretty simple, and what you get for the money is pretty impressive. I just have 2 gripes with the goggles myself. The first one is the nose gap. My nose rubs on the top here, so I will be applying some foam to make it more comfortable. I'm tempted to cut this nose piece out, but no doubt I will make a mess of it. Of course, there's the non-adjustable aspect ratio, which does not seem to bother me at all due to that massive screen. I can't notice the image being squashed at all. Lastly, there is no DVR, but if I wasn't running a YouTube channel, this would not bother me so much, especially for the price. However, a DVR can be useful finding a lost model. That's about everything. I think it is time that I go and take it for a fly. I will put a link in the description if you wish to purchase it. I suggest that if you are after some cheap goggles, then you do. As always, thanks so much for watching. Please continue to subscribe. Cheers.